Hello and welcome to Awakening Through Love. My name's Martina Hughes and my guest today is Joni Christine Fraser. Joni is a woman who is very dear to my heart, a woman I haven't met in person, but somebody that I've formed a really beautiful connection with, and she does work that is similar to what Rod and I are offering. And so Joni and I want to offer to our communities some women's conversations. So you have an opportunity to hear from two women who are living and working and embodying these messages. So welcome, Joni.
Thank you so much, Martina. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Beautiful. Can I ask you to introduce yourself a little bit and perhaps even including what's brought you to this path in your life of sacred intimacy, relationships, and diving into this sort of work?
Yes, thank you. Let's see, we'll start with the simple and the now. As you said, I work with women and couples around intimacy and building more intimacy. I come from a background of 20 years of teaching yoga and meditation. And then I went into the field of psychotherapy, and I worked with men and women, specifically around addictions and relationship challenges. So those sometimes overlapped, sometimes we're separate. But a lot of trauma work within that realm as well. And then about 7 years ago, I switched into coaching rather than therapy. And I was so inspired to embark on this path of sacred intimacy way back in 2011, I believe, is when I that concept first came across my radar. And right away, it hooked me. It hooked me strong. I was like, wait, what? What is this? In my life, I have, at a very young age, I was very curious, very much into spirituality, very much into self-growth and development, and was always curious to learn more and try new healing modalities. And I love healing modalities. Don't get me wrong. I think psychotherapy is great when it's appropriate. But there was a point where I was just needing something different and more, and I didn't have the words to address it, but now I'll say I needed something deeper. I needed to learn how to embody what I was learning versus just learning it in my head, right? Or just doing techniques with therapy, right? Like, I needed the embodiment work. My nervous system needed to learn how to shift into a different way of being, right? So that's that somatic work, the embodiment work. And then also, I had no idea about all the concepts that I've learned in sacred intimacy, that the different energies that we're playing with. I won't go too deep into that now, but let me check in with you. Does that answer your question? Should I?
Beautiful response. I love that. Yeah, really, really love that.
Really, also, I just need to add to, I was just suffering in relationship. Like, I loved being in relationship, but I didn't know how to come across to the men in my life. I couldn't, like, it felt like a concrete block between us. It was like I would say
Mm,
one thing and they would hear something else. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, how can I
mm,
relate better, like more clearly? It was all jumbled. So that's why it really hooked me right there.
mm, mm. Powerful. I love that. Yeah. And I can certainly relate from my own experiences of feeling that love and relationships just felt like such a challenging area for me, and something that I so desperately wanted in my life,
Yes. Yeah.
and felt like I just didn't have the tools or the capacity to make it work. I was kind of like, how come other people can do relationships and I end up staying single? There was that kind
Mm-hmm.
of experience for me of like being drawn to this field, because I knew that there was something that I needed to change within myself in order to have the relationship that I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Mm. So
Beautiful.
our topic for today is talking about women as leaders of love. And it's really powerful topic for us as women to explore, because it really does even go to the heart of some of the challenges that you and I've just described from our own lives, stepping into what it is to be a leader of love. So would you like to describe or define what a leader of love means to you?
Yes, thank you. And I know that you and I could talk about a leader of love for ever, right? Hours upon hours, days upon days, right? This is the lifestyle that you and I have both adopted and are
Yes.
embodying, are living, right? So to me, the leader of love, ultimate, uh, the woman who is a leader of love is so completely devoted to love itself, even though there are painful moments, right? She keeps showing up to love, even in the pain, even in the hurt, even in the sadness and grief, even in the anger, through all of it, right? And especially, during the blissful moments as well, that's a little easier, right? So she keeps showing up in devotion to love itself, to her own heart, her own truth, her authenticity, right? She is dedicated to appropriately being vulnerable and revealing her heart's truth for the sake of cultivating more love, right? And
Mm.
it's, to me too, it's not just, this is coming up, it's not just for her and her relationship. It's actually much larger than that. It's a global movement, right? Like, we are living as love for more love to be embodied on this planet.
Absolutely. I love that. I just want to repeat that because it's like, bang. It's like we're living as love for the embodiment of more love on the planet. Absolutely. Such an incredible statement. Mm, mm.
And as we know, some days are rougher than others. But that devotion piece, that keeps us coming back again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I want to check in with you. Do you want me to speak more? Because I totally could, but
Absolutely. It feels like you're on a roll. So let's have you dive in a little more. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So in the devotion to love, to her heart, to her vulnerability, to her beloved, to others on the planet, right? We're embodying more love, right? One of the things that I love to talk about with the leader of love is this concept of radical ownership, right? I am, what's coming to me right now is the famous Gandhi quote around being the change that you want to see in the world, right? So in order to do that, we as leaders of love need to be taking radical ownership moment to moment to moment. And what I mean by radical ownership is we get to ask ourselves, how am I bringing love to this moment? And, we might be stuck in a awkward, tough situation, which might be like, God, I'm not bringing love right now, and I don't feel like bringing love right now, right? And it's our job to recognize, do I need to take a time out right now and really just drop in and take care of myself and take care of my heart rather than starting an argument with my beloved, right? Or with someone else, right? Am I in a mood because I haven't been taking care of my basic needs up to a certain level? And how am I going to take ownership for that? How am I going to take ownership for my own boundaries? Am I going to blame someone else for crossing my boundaries? Or can I just take complete radical ownership and express myself in a way without blame or shame directed outwardly or inwardly, right? Being compassionate with both others and ourselves, because especially us women can be really hard on ourselves, right? We need to invite that compassion piece in, and constantly discern where we're at, what's happening in the moment. Am I about to project some of my wounds or my drama into a moment? Whoops, let's catch it. Even if we're in the middle of doing it, right? Whoops. Can I have a fresh start? Like, if you're aware of it, pause, take a moment, and come back to that bigger intention of being a leader of love. How's this landing so far? I feel like
I love it. Love it. It's so powerful because I'm sure, I recognize myself in those moments of when there's hurt or pain or something's been touched and it's like, I want to kind of like lash out, but knowing that lashing out, all that does is like, poison the intimacy in the relationship. Whereas being able to go, oh, there I am, I'm about to project or lash out. I'll take a time out. do I need to rest? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to have a bath? Do I need to do a movement practice? Do I need to do a meditation? What is it that will bring me back to that place of ownership and being present with my feelings, being able to take responsibility for who I'm being rather than blaming my partner? So yeah, having that sense of ownership is such a beautiful and transformative experience, and it really requires being able to navigate the discomfort, because it's the discomfort, it's the place where the heart's like, oh, I'm hurting, and the belly goes, oh, I'm contracted, and everything's kind of closing down. And it's in that discomfort that it's almost like the conditioned impulse is to react and go bleh at our partners, whereas that bleh is only going to actually push our partner away.
Right? Yes, exactly. Exactly. And, the science explains it, why that is, right? We have the neural pathways that have been wired a very specific way for most of our life, right? No one taught us how to be a leader of love. No one showed us how to open our heart. In reality, actually, let's just talk about this for a moment. We
Please.
didn't need anyone to show us. We already knew when we were born as infants on this planet. We did it naturally. We became socially conditioned to hold back our natural expression, we were molded into society's ways, which, we can't go back and change that. We have opportunity now to go, okay, that doesn't really work. Those actions, those behaviors were based in a different, with a different intention in mind, right? Not the intention of love, and love embodied on this planet, right? That wasn't the intention for society. But now, if that is our focus, we want to rewire our body minds. And that's where the embodiment piece comes in with both of our work, right? The somatic work, the actual practicing of feeling, practicing of expressing in the moment, so that we can rewire those neural pathways so we don't collapse when we're triggered. So our hearts don't close and we don't just lash out with blame and shame, right? How we've survived for most of our lives, right? We through those patterns. So we're recreating patterns within our body minds.
And that embodiment piece is just so important, to learn how to be present with all the feelings in the body, because when you opened up describing being a leader of love, you included the sense that the leader of love includes sadness and hurts and upsets and pain and anger. So being the leader of love is not, how do I put it? It's not like the fantasy version of love where it's like, hey, I'm rosy and perfect and everything's fine and happy all the time. It's not that illusion of love, like
That's
what we're
not real
talking.
love.
No,
Right, no.
what we're talking about includes all the messy and uncomfortable parts of being human and being women who feel deeply, as well as the really beautiful and ecstatic parts.
Being women who feel deeply. Yes. And a lot of my clients come to me because they forgot how to feel deeply.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't feel much, actually, right? And so they start to practice feeling emotion. And then the other part of my clientele feels so deeply that they get lost in their emotions, right? And they need to learn how to not get so lost, so identified with the emotions. So there's these two extremes of not really feeling, not knowing how to feel, feeling numb. That's actually a feeling, but and then those that get so caught up in emotion, but they are like suffering, they get lost in it, they don't, I call it, they identify with it, they cling to it. These are kind of like pushing it away. So as leaders of love, we are living with, or working towards living with, equanimity. And by equanimity, what I mean is the willingness to feel, the willingness to express how we're feeling without blame or shame.
Yeah, totally. So this journey of equanimity, it's very much that middle path that we see described in spiritual practice. Can you speak about how that equanimity looks in a practical sense for a woman who's, perhaps we start with the woman who's numb and not feeling much at all. How does she move towards that path of equanimity with her feelings?
So let's see, the woman who's not feeling much at all. First, I find with those type of clients that it is best to work in the psychotherapy world. We call it from top down, right? Top to bottom, right? So we start with the mind, and with using language and sometimes even charts and graphs to, or just words, right? Getting words on paper and having them look at the different kinds of emotion. I actually have one chart that has the different facial expressions for the different emotions, right? So they can start to see the wide variety. And then I also have this significant teaching. I'm not sure if I've said it yet, but no blame, no shame, right? Like, I think I've said it a couple, yeah, I've said it at least a few times already, right? But I have to really say that again and again and again, even to myself sometimes, right? But especially to clients, and especially to this particular client who may not be experiencing much emotion or numbness, because they can have a tendency to want to blame or shame the emotion itself. Oh, I shouldn't feel anger. I shouldn't feel resentment. So it's like, and it might not even be conscious. It's just like, it's so shut down, right? So as we start to strip the layers of blame and shame, often what we find when we do that is that there has been some significant woman in their life, maybe a mother or such, who was just the opposite, right? She was a very emotional being, but on the flip side of what I described before, right? And that frightened them. And so they were like, unconsciously, most likely, like, yep, I'm just not going to feel my emotions, because clearly that's just too intense, right? Or whatever. So that's one way to get started. And to add to that, this is true for all clients. I work a lot with identifying storylines, which is what we just did, right? We identified that maybe there was a woman of significance in that, in the childhood of the client, that then the client wrote a story in their mind. This is all done unconsciously, right? That emotions are scary. I shouldn't feel X, Y, or Z, right? So we start to, our brain starts to script these storylines, and a lot of time they become, they hatch from unconscious beliefs. So we got to go in, find out the belief around emotional expression about, and often a belief is just like a very short sentence, maybe not even a complete sentence, right? But like, one that has been significant in my journey and that I find over and over again with most of the women I work with is this, I call it a coin, right? And on one side of the coin, we have the belief that I'm too much. And on the other side of the coin is I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Feel how much that belief, that coin, has been part of my personal journey, and also something that I work with in clients. That belief, it can sit so deeply for so many women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
So
influence our behaviors, the way we express love, influence the way we show up in so many ways in the world.
yeah, I got goosebumps as you said that. Right. So the leader of love is constantly what I call getting curious with compassion, right? She's doing, okay, this is my little toy, my little prop, right? She's constantly getting curious, right?
Awesome.
Constantly looking with compassion at her wounds. And am I navigating from this wounded place, or can I base my actions in a place of love, of empowerment, of the leader of love, right?
Yeah. Really, that phrase that you use, curious with compassion, is so powerful, because it just brings in that element of curiosity, which to me feels spacious. And then the compassion, it's like, gently, curiously, slowly, not forcing, not pushing. But even then, to be able to go, am I navigating from my wounds? Am I projecting from my wounds? Or am I showing up as love in this moment? Am I bringing the openness, the curiosity, the compassion that actually will allow my body and my nervous system to relax and open? Because without that curiosity and compassion, it's so easy to stay in the conditioned reactive response of the past. But it's the curiosity with compassion. It's like, I can feel how much it's like inviting the body to open, to slow down, for the heart to soften, for the belly to soften.
Yes, again, I'm covered in goosebumps. I love how you shared all of that. Exactly. I've had clients, first of all, I'm pretty sure it's every client that I've ever worked with, when they first learn of these concepts, especially the blame and shame one, because most people, they don't even know that they're blaming and shaming themselves moment to, like, all the time, right? Like, not quite aware that it's happening. And then once working with me, and then I start to point it out to them, then they're like, oh my God, I'm doing it all the time. And then they go into more blame and shame. I need to stop doing this. I need to quit. Why do I keep doing this? Like, or what? And that's not the work. That's not the practice. That's just more blame and shame, right? So again, softening into that curiosity with compassion, and we go, oh, hi, blame and shame. I see you. Usually blame and shame pop up when there's an unmet need. So then we get curious and go, what do I need right now? Right. And I love how you spoke to that earlier. Like, maybe I need a bath. Maybe I need to put some music on and dance or move my body or whatever it is. Right. So these are examples of how we can keep getting curious with compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can feel, as you describe that, there's no possibility of healing when we blame or shame ourselves, because everything just closes down. So it's like healing, opening, transformation. None of it is possible in the face of blame or shame. And it takes real courage and vulnerability to be in the openness, to bring the curiosity with compassion. Includes courage, includes vulnerability. Like, I see it in my journey, I see it with clients where the impulse to close is often so familiar, and there's that kind of like, it's how people learn to protect themselves, whereas being able to create new pathways, it's like, okay, learning how to take a deep breath, learning how to soften the body and bring that, both the vulnerability and the courage for a new experience. Because the truth is, what we've done in the past hasn't created the experiences that we've wanted. So it's like really leaning in to something new requires vulnerability, requires courage. And so being able to have the curiosity with compassion supports that courage and vulnerability.
Yes, yes, thank you. That was so beautifully said. And I want to highlight a word that I think came up for the first time, and then it came up twice right in a row. So, courage, right?
Yeah.
A leader of love is courageous. Like, we often hear, have no fear, or, like, we think fear is a bad thing that we have to get rid of, right? There's some blame and shame, right?
Yeah.
Right? No, that's not the work. Fear, especially when we're in the unknown, fear is going to be there. The unknown is scary in nature because we don't know it. We don't know what to expect.
Yes.
Right? So as leaders of love, we feel the fear and we keep going. Right? We don't let the fear drive, so to speak, right? It's not, the fear isn't leading the way. We can feel it and put it to the side. We can name it, identify it, right? I love that term from Dr. Danielle Siegel, name it to tame it, right? Like, if we feel, we might not even be conscious that we're afraid, right? We might feel certain bodily sensations first. Again, this is one way that I work with clients from the top down, right? Is identifying physical sensations first. And then they start to like make a map of, oh, generally when I feel these physical sensations, that's when I often feel the emotion of, fear or sadness or whatever, right? So they can start to equate the feeling sense, translate it into an emotion. And then when they can say the name of the emotion, it, neuroscience, it for some reason, it tames it, right? We can't change something that we're unconscious of. So if we're unconscious of what we're feeling, we can't change it. But if we can identify it and label it, all of a sudden I have a little more spaciousness around it.
And that spaciousness is really, really key, because in that spaciousness, again, something relaxes in the body. Something can soften in the body when there's spaciousness. Yeah. So the naming feels like such a powerful part. Yeah.
Yes. Beautifully
So
said.
I know we've spoken to, oh, actually, there's a few things just kind of like pop, pop, pop.
I saw that.
I was like, oh, say this, oh, say this, oh, say this. Yeah, it's so easy to feel consumed by fear, and that sense of like, just do it, or don't be afraid, or push past your fears. It's like, it's not supportive to being a leader of love. It's like feeling the fear without becoming identified or collapsing into it, being able to just be like, I'm so terrified to say this, and here I am, showing up vulnerable, afraid, with being able to breathe into the moment as the woman I am, with an open heart, with a soft belly, even when I'm afraid. That's where there's really powerful medicine. It's like not getting lost in the fear, but also not pretending it's not there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now we're talking about the other side, the other clientele, right? The ones who may get lost in the emotion, flooded is a word, right? Or cling or identify with the emotion. And I can strongly relate to this client. And yes, navigating that space of like, how do we not get overwhelmed by the emotion that we don't even act, right? Or express ourselves, right? Like if, like what I loved what you said, like being with the terror, right? The terror that's so intense, and finding a way. It doesn't even need to be a word. You expressed it beautifully with the words that you use. It doesn't even have to be a word though. It could just be like,
Yeah, totally, because in that, the fear, in the sound you made, I felt it ripple through your body. I felt that, if I'm in that space with you and you're making that sound, I'm going to know you're afraid.
and some people might not even be able to jump to like, oh, you're afraid, like conscious of the fact that you're afraid, right? It just might just be like, oh my gosh, what do you need, right? That might be the sole focus. Like you just woke something up, right? We call it consciousness, right? You woke up a higher level of consciousness and called it to you.
Yes.
By expressing.
Right?
And when we can do that, some of the language we use is, like, and with an open heart versus a closed heart, right? The closed heart is going to be like the blame and shame, or the collapse, or the identification of the wounded self, right? That's just not going to be able to translate as clearly. Like, someone might not even hear it. Even if you're yelling at the top of your lungs, like they don't have time for it. It's just like not you cannot penetrate a single focused being when you're coming from a closed heart necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be that open heart, that equanimous expression that will wake up the higher levels of consciousness.
Yes, yes, yes. The open heart is so powerful, and I love how you've shared that it penetrates, awakens higher levels of consciousness. It's like open heart is so necessary, and it can be really challenging when the habit has been to collapse and close the heart, to really lean into that vulnerability of, I'm going to be here with the open heart and allow whatever this discomfort, whatever this emotion is, to ripple through my body.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm a huge fan of women gathering in groups and practicing together. Really, that's how we overcome that, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
solo practice is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. We need a solo practice. We need our two body practice with our partner as well. But when we come together as women, like, we get to witness other women and the way that they do it. And then you could go like, oh, wow, like, could I do that? Or like it expands our repertoire, right? Like like, oh, I never thought about expressing my anger in that way. Like, I wonder if I'll try that, right? And then you can just play with it. It's about allowing ourselves to play with the expression so that when we're in the actual real moment, the live moment where our partner goes unconscious and our heart is hurt and we need to let him know, and we feel those old patterns coming and clenching and going, no, I shouldn't say anything, right? We could go, no, I have practice, right? There's no time, the brain doesn't actually work this way, but right, like, I have this experience, oh, I'm gonna try, ouch, right? And you get that little ouch out. As long as it's with equanimity and the open heart, he can even hear the most subtle ouch.
Yeah. And really what you've described there, that sense of, if we've practiced, explored, used our body, whether it's in a group with women or in our solo practice, it's like we are training and opening the neural pathways for it to be okay to say out. We're training and opening the body to have some familiarity with being able to go, ah, or whatever the feeling is. It's like when we train our body to be able to express with the open heart in the moment, then it's available when we need it. But if we haven't trained it, if we haven't practiced it, all we have left is the old habits.
Right. And that's like, I could talk on and on about this. like in our mind, it seems so easy. Oh, I just have to do X, Y, or Z. But it's in the live actual moment where it's like, whoosh. It does not come out the way, it's not very elegant usually. It's messy. We're making art, right? Like, and it's okay to be messy, right? Like, it is so okay, because we have the very next moment always to make adjustments, to try it again, to keep going.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just because we might have splattered brown paint everywhere doesn't mean that we have to throw the painting away.
Yeah. So true. And for me, I found that practicing through my solo practice, the expression of feelings and emotions, and using solo practice for excavating the unexpressed things has been such a necessary tool, and something I still continue to use, because I'm the woman who's more likely to close down the feelings and jump up into the mind. So I love that it's like you're one side of the equation and I'm the other side of the equation. But it was like I spent such a big period of time of excavating and training my body to have some familiarity with the in the moment expression of feelings, and also recognizing there'd be days where I'd be like, oh, that moment passed and I didn't express the feeling. I'll take that into my practice tomorrow, and okay, if I can practice my ouch, if I can practice showing my hurt and letting that ripple through my body, and that it was allowing space for that so that I could soften into being available in those moments rather than just withdrawing into my head. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So
Mm.
beautifully said.
Mm. Yes. So if we don't train for something new, we can't create something new. And if we don't train the new thing, then our body mind goes back to what it knows, what's familiar. Yeah. Mm.
I mean, I live in just on the edge of the Rocky Mountains, right? I can't just go, oh, I'm going to do a bike race, climb the Rocky Mountains, and like I would have to train for that, and it takes time. So that compassion piece is so important to bring along. And in the moments where so I swear a lot, I'm sorry, I'm gonna probably release the swear word here, right? Like when we fuck it up, right? Please be mindful, because it's probably programmed in your mind, right, in your nervous system, to go ahead and blame and shame yourself because you just fucked it up, right? You just ruined the moment. Good job, blah, 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 whatever, right?
Yeah.
So then do you collapse? This is especially for the woman who identifies a lot with her feelings and gets lost in them, right? She has a, more at risk to collapsing and closing in those moments and blaming herself and like, oh, I did it wrong again. And I mean, don't get me wrong, but all women have a tendency to do this. But yeah, I guess I'm just stressing the importance again of the no blame and shame, because we are going to fuck it up. Whoa.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Next moment. Keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that being curious with compassion and just allowing ourselves to feel what's there in the moment, to soften into the body, to take a deep breath, to, it's okay. I find that just even saying to myself, I'm okay, I'm safe, it's okay, like just to land in the body in this moment, then it creates that little bit of space to have some awareness, to have some choice, to be able to find a way back to the open heart for that moment.
Yes, that beautiful, right? And once we're there, then we can reconnect with another.
Yes.
But we don't want to reconnect before then, because then we're just, oh, no. I also want to touch on the word that you shared of excavation, right? So to me, the leader of love, this is part of radical ownership, right? Is extra is constantly looking for those moments, like you just said, right? Like, oh, there was this moment where I didn't express myself and I didn't feel this, right? So she is going into her solo practice to process that on her own,
Mm-hmm.
not going back to her lover to process it with him. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, again, we're going to have our moments where we're like, oops,
Yes.
I did that. Oh, well, like, okay. Um, but right, he's not our therapist,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't want to therapize our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So we take ownership and do it within our own practice or with our
Mm.
girlfriends, right? We can,
Yeah.
if they're on the path, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I think they're navigating it with girlfriends. It's like where there is some sense of being on a similar path so that it doesn't devolve into an opportunity to blame partners, because yeah, that can be a dicey area sometimes for women, sharing with other women and then it turning into a dumping onto the partner, which on some level will be felt and will impact the relationship.
100%. Yes. Yes. And you're pretty kind with your wording there. Saying like sometimes and like it's, you know, being human, living our lives, right? We have pressure that builds in our body systems,
Mm.
right? So most people, regular folk, I tend to use the word muggle here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right? They're looking for relief. They're looking to relieve that pressure.
Mm.
So they will engage in, watching the TV or smoking cigarettes, having a beer, chatting with their friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting that energy out verbally. It's relieving pressure that you're feeling inside your body and your
Mm.
energetic field as well. The leader of love engages less and less and less in those ways of relieving pressure. Actually, the leader of love is looking to consciously cultivate pressure in a very specific way to meet her partner with that pressure and have a beautiful explosion.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Right? We're not trying to discharge that pressure unconsciously. And when we get together with our girlfriends and talk about our beloved, right? We are, again, this is like unconscious relieving of that internal pressure. And we, society has a way of like framing it like, well, it's just girl talk and like, and I need my girlfriend's support and all that. It's really gossiping.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And it's we're losing trust. If our partner knew what we were talking about, we would lose his trust. We're losing the trust of ourselves by relaying this sacred information.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I do feel a
Absolutely.
little strongly on this.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Thank you for expanding on that, because yeah, it is such a dangerous area for women that they're speaking about their partner with other people. Yeah.
Right? And as
Mm.
feminine beings, I mean, we love to talk. This is what we
Yeah.
do. Like
Yeah.
like again, so no blame, no shame. Let's just start
Mm.
getting curious with
Mm-hmm.
compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just caught myself talking about my partner with my best friend.
Mm.
Do I really want to be doing this right now?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What need is not getting met that I'm feeling like I have to do this? Maybe I should
Mm.
address that need rather than actually telling the exact story of what happened last night.
Yes, yes. And it becomes a leaking of energy in the sense that instead of addressing it internally or
Yep.
making some kind of shift within the relationship, there's a sense of energy leaks out, but then it also means there's less energy in the container of the relationship because of what's leaking outside.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then, we keep going on in the relationship and we're like, oh, there's just not, we're not as physically intimate anymore. And
Mm.
this is just how relationships go. And this is natural and normal.
Mm.
And, as things just get blander and blander and blander, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it could be your normal if that's really what you want, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes, yes, there is.
Absolutely not.
There's so much more that is possible and available in intimate relationships when we have the embodiment tools and the awareness to make these kind of changes. Yeah.
Right.
So it feels like this brings us to a close for today. I just want to say this topic of women as leaders of love, there's still so much more for us to include, and today we're very much focused on these elements of the radical ownership and how we can be equanimous with the feelings and the experiences and what our personal journey is as women. We've only kind of like briefly touched on how that interacts with our relationships. So in the next episode of Joni and I, let's dive in more deeply to how that looks in an intimate relationship when a woman is the leader of love. What is it that she's bringing to a man, and how does that even how does that transform, or what does it create in the relationship? So before we close, Joni, is there any last words that you'd like to offer to the women listening about women as leaders of love?
Yes, I'm also just completely covered in goosebumps as you were just talking, and just all this gratitude was coming up for me. Like, how wonderful to be able to get on this call with you, Martina, and to dive deep into this topic. Um, it yes, like women together can make really cool beauty happen. It's just beautiful, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
so as you start to explore being a leader of love in your own life, um keeping those phrases close to you, right? The no blame, no shame, getting curious with compassion, and exploring equanimity and what that looks like for you in any given moment, right? We just keep practicing every moment. So what I say to my clients is moment to moment to moment, we're opening to love. Okay. So it's not that we have to stay open. We just continuously get curious. What do I need to open to love now? How about now? What about now?
Yes, yes. I love that. Moment to moment to moment. What do I need now? What do I need now? I really love having these conversations with you. Thank you so much for being here and everything you've shared today. It's really feel my heart singing with joy to be creating these episodes with you. So thank you so much, Joni, and thank you everyone who's listening and watching.
Yes, thank you.